So both of you are okay with being filmed?
Yeah, I just need you to blur out my face.
Yeah.
In the image, or not show it in Eastern European countries. Got a couple warrants out, you know. My trip to Poland did not go well.
Are we,
I sent out the file, so.
Alright.
There we go.
So, yeah, Martin, so you just text me.
Is anybody not ready?
1 second.
Okay. So is anybody not ready? Okay, great. I affirm, presume A affirming is hard to do since the 7-4 times Q2 if I come equal that I've done debate to being. B affirming is hard since the negative debate can remove multiple off-case framework. There must be a right to set ends, otherwise ethics is incoherent since it assumes the subject deliberate between multiple courses of action. However, to prevent this right from becoming contingent, we must have a conception of property. Bucket 87. Human beings have the right to pursue the end. They have the right to act in those ways necessary for achieving ends at all. Manipulation of objects is this one of the means necessary for achieving the end. The right of use of external things is necessary. The right of external freedom. 5 reasons to forbid the use of physical objects. External freedom becomes the contradiction with itself. External freedom would in effect be forbid by the reason morally impossible. Individuals have the inherent right to their own things. Possession in this case is subjective condition of possibility. My right of having to fear use of a thing presupposes that I can justifiably complain if no one interferes with the thing as I please. If I have the rights to something, there must be some circumstance in which I retain those rights even though I've lost custody. The objects of possession must have a second meaning distinct from custody. If I have the right to do things that is impossible, there's such relationship between me and an object. I have authority over the object regardless of whether I have custody. Impact calc. 1. Property rights are a prerequisite to evaluating ethical statements. Knowing what property is and what it is not is the only way to make ethics coherent, and people need to have property rights. Not doing so would make ethics incoherent. Kant 1. A human being cannot renounce their possibility. It is a contradiction that they should be freely act as no authorization or need to action. To annihilate the subject morality is to root the existence of morality from the world. Disposing of oneself as a mere means is debasing humanity. In impact calc 1. Evaluating property rights is a prior question to the resolution. Without property rights, people can't have the authority over their own morality. 2. In the same nature, there's violence against people who can't control themselves, and the ability to lay claim to property rights requires the omnilateral will. Kant 2. When I will something external to be mine, I declare that everyone's under obligation or free from easing that obligation. This involves knowledge that I'm under the obligation to use what is theirs. A unilateral will cannot serve as a course of law with disregard to possession as its external contention that would infringe upon freedom is the only will putting everyone under obligation that can provide their assurance. Impact calc 1. The omnilateral will is the only way that can resolve issues of property rights and create a moral guide for everyone. 2. Unilateral wills aren't ethically binding. They don't show a truth for everyone to act. And ethics must be a priori. Empirical only shows what is, but a priori ethics can guide ethics. Johnson. An a posteriori method of principle will not support moral odds necessities, and empirical observations can only deliver conclusions but clearly would not support the absolute necessity of moral state. And requirements of moral philosophy to guard against the necessity of obligation must be carried out entirely a priori. Impact calc 1. Empirical observations are arbitrary and aren't constitutive of actual facts, therefore they can't guide any ethics, thus ethics must be universal. 2. A priori truths are most accessible. 2 + 2 = 4 for everyone, and empirical observations are false, making them required to be outside the world. Russell. Our field of vision does not for us have a visual boundary just because there's nothing outside of it, and like our meteorological world has no logical boundary because our logic knows nothing outside. We cannot say this is and this is the world to say so. We presuppose that we can exclude certain possibilities and require logic go beyond the boundaries of the world. And agency exists. You act as one you are one person, act as one person, providing that you can unify and decide what to do. Course card. There is a raw necessity of eliminating conflict among your various motives. You're a unified person at any given time because you must act, and you only have one body with which to act. The idea that you're choosing among your conflicting desires rather than just waiting to see which one would suggest you have reason for acting against them. The strength of a desire means that there's a principle or way of choosing that you regard as being expressed for yourself, which provides reason that regulate your choice among your desires. Impact calc 1. Since identity exists, you must value yourself as someone who can make ethical decisions and values action. You can shed every idea except your human identity. We can shed conflicting impulses by choosing not to take them as reason, but you cannot have a reason to reject the value of the source of your moral reasons. 2. The state must respect each agent's agency, otherwise it leads to violence and people would be deemed subhuman. 3. Agency is inevitable. You can't will yourself to be a slave. You can't deny another's freedom because since they possess the same right that would deny the agent's worth. Since the structure of reason is independent of particulars of maxims, maxims must be universal since the reason for a rational agent is reason for every rational agent, and because all ethics is universal, it must be true for all rational agents. No ethics is constrained by empirical observation because ethics exists of these. Thus, the standard is consistency with universal reason. Prefer additionally, 1 is the only way to guide ethics and avoid infinite regrets. That operate truths and political property rights, then people are going to be able to make coherent ethical decisions. 2. My framework is a prior question. We have to know why people have worth. 3. All frameworks collapse and Kant. They assume that everyone has a property rights to themselves and they can make decisions and it's universal. And the AC hijacks any framework and operates under offensive because it's only an omnilateral will can protect rights. Ripstein. Public acts are omnilateral because they are not of any particular person's unilateral choice, but rather exercise the collective body when the state authorizes the acquisition of private property. It's not make the having a property its purpose to enable human beings to have things to use against each other. Impact Calc 1, omnilateral will is the only way for rights to be achieved. Any other ethical theories fails in providing rights. 2, this hijacks all the framers' collected goods are based off omnilateral will, and intention by the agent directly correlates to ethical value that Boyle and Lavin. Goal-directed progressive characterize the subject by relating to its own future to a possible outcome that would cause something that the subject affected rather than something that merely happened to it. Doing A is not falsified because the future state phrase does not come. It's only falsified if the state sort of what the subject was sending. A future that counts as the subject's own must be drawn against the background of conception of what the subject is. Impact Calc 1, consequences don't matter in resolving the round because they don't falsify the action or the value of it. 2, this is the only coherent way to analyze ethics. Since time is infinite, all actions affect our world. We can't foresee what the consequence of those actions are going to be. Advocacy, I defend the whole resolution, but I reserve the right to clarify if asked in CX, and I will meet any interps. And contention, treating humanity as an aim requires a universal basic income. Anything else disrespect the dignity of people and using them as a means. Bowie. A corporation can be considered only if employees are treated as an end. Then the corporation should honor the self-respect of employees, but employees must have a certain amount of independence as well. The ability to satisfy their desires. People achieve independence and satisfaction of society through the wages they can earn as employees. And freedoms are violated because people take jobs that are unfair because they're deemed necessary. UPI resolves this because it gives people a wage without having to work. Ripstein. Provisions for the four follows from the united will. Person is only bound by the authority of another through united will. People can fail to share such a will through relations of private dependence. The people are completely subject to the choice of those in more fortunate circumstances. The poor person is subject to the choice of those who have more. And underview 1, to affirm means to say that something is true, to negate means to deny the truth of, which implies truth testing is the only paradigm consistent with textuality. Judges don't have jurisdiction to vote out something not in the resolution with comparative rules. The only paradigm consequential is prefer. Additionally, A, and controls internally to topic education, real world and critical think determines how we're able to interpret the resolution through different manners. B, portable education, philosophy. It's the portable skill that we get that we'll be able to implement in our everyday lives in the future. That's key to actual decision making. 2, AF gets 1 error theory, otherwise net can be infinitely abusive and there's no way to check against this. Meta theory also precedes the evaluation of initial theory because it determines whether or not I can engage in theory in the first place. 3, 1 error theory is dropped. The duration of 1 year is too short to be able to rectify abuse and adequately cover substance. You must be punished for the abuse that you have. 4, no neg RVI. The 6-minute 2-and-R has more than enough time to win both theory and substance. Then a 6-minute 2-and-R can go all in theory. A revamp which prevents theory from being recourse against even truly positions. And also don't vote for him for being fair. Also, you don't vote for him because it's don't vote off on RVI because it denies chills theory debate and makes it harder to check against abuses. And yeah, that's it. I'm not reading the competing interps.
All right.
Ready whenever you are.
All right. So let's talk about this framework. So you say that like property rights are important, right? Mm-hmm. So how does the UBI like make sense then? Doesn't it like inherently take some people's property and give it to others?
No, the way it protects people's property rights is because the government has to be able to make sure that everyone cannot be like overthrown and like be dependent on other private actors. That takes away their property rights.
Let's talk about the omnilateral will. How does the omnilateral will reconcile conflicting unilateral wills?
Because like it just comes above. It's like a prior question to analyzing unilateral wills. You like look at the omnilateral will first.
So the omnilateral will is just everyone's unilateral wills.
No, it's like the government's will that it puts on the people.
All right, so
and
just look at the government's
it's able
will
to unify
first,
each
right?
person. Yeah.
All right. So what if the government's will is like inherently oppressive or something?
It's not going to be oppressive because we're debating a resolution that's ethically correct. Like UBI is going to be correct.
So your framework
correct.
only applies to this resolution.
No, I'm justifying the contention.
Okay, so what would your framework do in a more ethically confounded situation? Like, what would your framework say? It is bad for people to break a law that is clearly immoral, like a law that, like,
you're not able to do that under the omnilateral will.
So your framework,
but I only
says, like,
contextualize
people should
this to
follow
the
the state no
contention.
matter whatever.
I only contextualize this to the contention too.
All right, so your
So
framework
that's what we debate
isn't, like,
about.
universalizable.
No,
then, 'cause it
that's
doesn't
not
apply to
true.
every
That's
situation.
not true. It is universalizable.
How is it universalizable if it doesn't apply to every situation?
Whenever it's more of a preempt to your argument that you can make. Oh, it's not universal. It's like bad in every instance. No, I just defend it in this instance, but it is universal because we do have to defend it. So like the contention shows why it is good and it is universal.
Okay, but your framework wouldn't apply to an action that isn't universalizable.
Yeah, Kant doesn't the political philosophy doesn't justify universal actions.
All right, so let's talk about your contention.
I mean, non-universal
actions.
Your
first argument seems to prove that we don't need a UBI because it says that as long as wages are high enough, they can earn their wages.
No, this card talks about how we need to have if people work at these places.
Does any of your contentious level cards talk about a UBI?
Yeah. These both talk about how these both
Pull me to a line in the card that says the phrase UBI.
Both of these cards talk about how we should honor the self-respect of the people and have independence of these people. We need to have satisfaction of their desires.
But they're not specific.
People achieve independence and satisfaction of their desires using their wages, and they can earn as employees. So we're saying that UBI would supplement the wages and be able to have them more independence. Two, they could also gain independence by not having to work.
Yes or no question. Your cards do not mention the UBI.
I mean, they don't mention UBI specifically, but
so
it talks
what's the
about
distinction under
increasing
Kantian philosophy between a UBI and other welfare programs that help people be independent?
Wait, what?
How do we, using your content framework, how do we evaluate the UBI versus competing welfare programs that also help people be independent? Like, what do we default to if both are universalizable and
So
like,
we
meet the
justify
maximum?
which one works more and like which
All
one
right, so we look at
respects
sort of like
dignity of people
imperfect,
more.
sort of imperfect duties. Type
No,
thing,
we
or
have
like
to
which
look-
respects the dignity more.
Like the dignity and like the like independence of people.
All right, I'll take prep. My time is all right. Starting prep now. All right. 2 minutes prep time remaining. Why is Google Chrome not letting me load? My Google Chrome is not open for some reason. Alright, I'll just send it using Firefox. Do you have a flash drive?
No.
It might just be easier because this is really not working for some reason.
Does someone in the audience have a flash drive for our negative competitor here?
I'm really unsure why this is taking so long.
No one has a flash drive in the whole audience, really?
Yeah.
It's cash.
This wasn't an out round. I would hope for extra speaks for that.
Nah.
Oh, okay. I just had to disconnect and connect. It's working. Sorry. Alright, that's still being done actually. Alright, it's alright. Yeah. It's called 1 and C versus Jason.
You want the flash drive?
I would just. Oh, do you guys want to just call for it afterwards if you need it, or? Do you guys want to know?
Yeah,
Okay.
All right. The order is going to be 4 off AC.
Hey guy, I need another one.
Oh, here, I got one. He has the long stuff.
Yes.
Oh, lucky him.
You want to just hit me up with another
Trying to do some pre-prep there, Jason. Looks like you're prep stealing.
They say it takes 30 minutes to email the doc.
That's fair. All right. Is everybody ready? Is everyone ready? Alright. First off is theory. A is the interpretation of the affirmative must specify a funding mechanism for UBI with a qualified sound certificate. BI meets the extended topic literature. Literally the core of the topic is how to fund a UBI. You can't find a single article that doesn't speculate on it. Heated education because topic is how we learn the most relevant topic. And 2 is debatability. We can talk about the effects of a UBI without knowing the tax system. We avoid the discussion. The AFA cannot propose a realistic system. Expert like Graham in 16. As it's currently being discussed, UBI comes across a very expensive $3 trillion price tag. Cost systems like this are damning because of how the confusion over how it would be funded. This does not have to be the case. UBI, universal transfer programs like a basic income, cannot be analyzed outside of the tax system that pays for it. The economist Rick Rose said, any definition of a basic income that speaks only of transfer payments and ignores the tax system is a stupid definition. This kills education and fairness because we're not learning about the topic in a good way. We have to define all the downside of the topic without getting to discuss what actually happens. And 3 is evidence skew. They get to read the cheapest cost estimates, the largest poverty reduction arguments, cherry picking the topic for generic cards that support kills fairness because I lose solvency deficits and costs. It says kills education. We don't learn about the details of the policy. They're going to say that this doesn't have an impact because they're reading a Phil AC. But Kant would definitely care about how things are taxed or how those things were distributed effectively, which means they still have to specify. And fairness, vote on fairness. It's the constitutive purpose of debate. It's a key aspect of debate, and every argument presupposes that it's fair. And vote on education. It's the reason we debate. It's a long-term takeaway. And drop the debater on theory. 1 is that everybody runs out of skewed. I can't make a comeback. And 2, it's key to deterring future abuse. And competing in terms of reasonability. 1 is reasonability is either in a double bind, either it's a gut check which is arbitrary, or it collapses to competing in terms because we debate the bright line. Next off is framework. Phenomenal introspection is reliable and proves utility truths in a Babu. History offers examples that discriminates ethnicities, classes, and gender. Widespread error reduces the probability my beliefs are true. Even if I have no direct error, no induction suggests that they are right with error. Our epistemic situation forces us to abandon moral beliefs. Phenomenal introspection is reliable. Experience is rich in detail. It's so vision sometimes proves this falsity. It's so reliable as to be indispensable. One looking at a one can perform beliefs are bright. One considering pleasure, one can make judgments that are good. The parallel between yellow brightness and pleasure goodness demonstrates objectivity. I can't know whether pleasure is good. That supports detail. This co-ops my opponent's frameworks. 1, it's universalizable. Pleasure is the only thing that we universally know to. And 2, it takes out his wrestle card because it shows that empirical observations are reliable and thus the standard is maximizing happiness. Prefer the standard 1. Reductionism. Personal identity doesn't exist. Olson. If transfusion would transplant the recipient would be you. If we destroy one hemisphere and transplant the other one who got the transplant would be you. Suppose both hemispheres are transplanted each into a different empty head to put two recipients will each be you, but that cannot be one thing. It cannot be two things. A contradiction. This means consequentialism. Mole. You just can't focus on individuals and that unifies them across time. Always use the phrase. He's going to try to extend his quote to contradict stuff, but that doesn't answer. It just says that if in certain instances we can will ourselves to a certain action, then we have identity in that instance, but we don't have an identity overall, which means long-term things like property rights have no value. And 2, determinism is true. Our bodies are controlled by biological principles only. There's no room for free will. Drescher. Mechanical principles like how many particles of our body specify how each of these particles behave, which specifies how each of us behaves. There's no room for the ghost-like component. If you would have to make some of the particles violate the principles that all particles are observed to obey, how we can reconcile the mind with the mechanical nature of the body. Any nudging should constitute a change in probability of distribution, and even would break the rules that particles continue to obey. The rules are exceptionless, and only consequentialism is consistent with determinism. Green and Cohen. The consequentials approach with hard determinism. Consequentials are not concerned with whether anyone is innocent or guilty, but with the likely effects upon our measure. The retributive approach is regarded as requiring free will. Hard determinism implies that no one deserves to be punished. This takes out all of his framework calls, because if we don't have agency, then it doesn't matter if his framework is the only one that respects agency, because it's a myth. These next arguments are for theoretical framework justifications, but if he wants to read theory and wants to say, I will concede them right away, so don't let him get away with a 1 AR theory shell about why they're bad. First, util is good for topics about most solid about the consequences of UBI, because that's how people evaluate a util, ensures that we have a key to topic, promoting predictable cache. This is the strongest link to fairness by encouraging that it is easy to engage with and has a resolvable conclusion. Fairness is a voter, because every assumption being break. I already explained what fairness is a voter. 2 is ground. Ensuring a broad standard consequential amount of econ topic means we have both amounts of reciprocal ground, even if there's a disparity between ground quantity always, so you can just really check how good it's talking issues. That's comparatively better than no ground. Ground is key to fairness because the arguments consistent with the fundamental underpinnings of debate. Next off is the counterplan. Counterplan text: the United States ought to provide a near universal basic income, or an NUBI. EL10 explained under NUBI, everyone exceeds a basic income except for the rich, as so much as their earnings are exceed both median income and economic insufficiency. In the United States, NUBI is phased out around 1 or 2 most uppermost income deciles, and the counterplan is mutually exclusive, since the counterplan is plan minus by giving benefits all to rich. Don't let them get away with some textual competition nonsense that allows for random counterplan spikes that are sketchy counterplan terms that don't make any sense, or proving out of tons of random ones, and functional competition is actually how they compete in the real world. And NUBI would be better at fighting inequality and independence. EL2. A free society requires that opportunities are distributed in maximum fashion. NUBI promotes economic maximum even more than UBI, but extremely pushes power to immediate freedom. NUBI secures real freedom to all better than UBI, because enough money and material independence can be secured without transfer to all citizens. The rich already have more than money is necessary, and NUBI secures sufficiency, including access to political participation. NUBI ensures similarly the job seekers have some income to fall on, and introduces similar incentives to offer good jobs. And NUBI saves money when you factor in administration costs. EL3. NUBI wastes money on the rich and therefore saves a lot of money. NUBI would have saved $200 to $400 billion. NUBI could eliminate many tax loopholes as well as the long-term cost of poverty. We can track whether citizens fall in the uppermost income deciles without special expensive intrusive measures. Tax income returns a gallery to give that information to enable a UBI. NUBI, all authorities would have to do is add calculation based on tax return. Intrusive additional methods means something error not required. This is better under his framework because we could give either A, give money, more money to the poor, meaning they have more or they have less dependence on things, or 2, we could just not cut other welfare programs, which also help them. Next off is the disad. New congressional rules make federal funding zero-sum. Every dollar poured into the F is a dollar cut somewhere else in the budget. Sanger. The House voted on new rules. The new rules prohibit the House from considering any bill that proposes a net increase in mandatory spending with 1 to 5 year 10 budget year windows. If a bill increases mandatory spending, the bill must cut the budget somewhere else by the same amount. Increases in revenues cannot be used to offset spending, and social programs like Social Security and Medicare will be the first to go. Marion 16. Republicans in Congress released a plan for reform Social Security that would drastically reduce the bill. The bill would make Social Security benefits formula less generous, but all but the lowest raise the retirement age and reduce the annual cost of living. Social Security Works noted this plan would turn into a poverty level benefit. House Speaker Paul Ryan has built a career on proposals to scale back social insurance programs. The Social Security has been added to Republicans' shopping block. American seniors will be alarmed to hear that the top Republican on this important subcommittee will put out forward a plan to drastically cut social benefits for millions of seniors. Don't let him get with this. The fact that this is not a consequence because of the rules make it an intrinsic part of the action he's taking. It's not a side effect, it is the action. Next on the case. As an overview to the entire case, this is a super sketchy F. Let me get 2 new end responses on any a priori's and underviews coming out of the F, because 1 is they're not new, they're not fully fleshed out, so I get responses to implications, and 2, otherwise you can just make blippy ones, which is uneducational for debate. Next, on the presumed F arguments. 1, after it speaks first and last, so they get A, get to set the parameters around, B, get for space for P, because we have psychologically more inclined to vote after the last thing. 2, side bias is non-verifiable. We have equal speech time. This takes out the argument because they don't have warrant how the distribution creates the time skew. 3, time skew is not important. Time allocation and efficient details fall. 4, turn making these arguments is a negative time trade because it distracts from your ability to go for substance, which can directly impact the ballot, while these only have a potential impact. 5, turn negating is more counterintuitive on the topic, so I'm at a qualitative disadvantage. 6, F side bias creates a full self-fulfilling prophecy where judge try to compensate on specific issues by granting leeway, which makes it hard for me to get access to presumption against the petty sort of the F. 7, turn the F as an infinite prep line, which outweighs time skew because of how I exploit the speech time layout at the end. You follow issue the issues. 8, even if they prove these faults, granting them overcompensates because they need to prove that it's potential for the in-access. Skip the presumed neg arguments. On the framework, Kant's political philosophy only sets up systems of government, not policies within those. This means it fails to guide action. Ripstein. The Kantian for is formal rather than subjective, not to specify the level of social provision nor a detailed analysis of the nature of wrongful dependence, whether, for example, inequalities of bargaining power between employers and workers could qualify. The argument requires actual institutions to set levels of mechanisms. It is not supposed to micromanage social policy within the appropriate structure. The answers must be imposed by the people themselves. Big impact in the round. This means that the UBI and the counterplan are these functionally the same, and that we default to either A, imperfect duties like helping more people, or 2, another framework like util in the round, because he has no idea on how to weigh between these two. Kant just says we should have some welfare. He doesn't specify how much or to who, and the UBI reintroduces the sexual division of labor by incentivizing women to succumb to the caregiver. Donna 14. Traditional forms of female labor have been decommodified. Women are dependent on occupying their role, which gives rise to sexual division of labor. UBI may entrench the sexual division if no woman no longer work out of economic necessity to succumb to the social pressure to take up caregiver role. Men could free ride out unpaid work for women, and women could be fully excluded. Impacts to the framework because they don't have freedom and are dependent. Alright, so I didn't read anything past the Fraser card, and I didn't read the reasons to presume neg.
Okay. Okay. So, like, Why didn't you ask in CX for me to spec like a funding mechanism? I
Yeah.
would have done that.
First, if you want to read that argument, I'll give a bunch of reasons why cross-check checks doesn't solve.
Wait, why didn't you
Two,
read that just then in the one in C?
Because it's a response to an argument you have to make.
Wait,
it's not my obligation.
I had that spike in the AC that says I would.
Yeah, you didn't contextualize it to the shell. If you want to make the argument, I'll make responses in the 2 and R. Your argument doesn't justify why CX checks are good. It just says you offer them.
Let's go on
and
the
second of all, is because it doesn't matter if you just say in cross-check,
Kenan,
I need a card that says it will cost X much and will be funded through X way by an economist.
Kenan, okay, so what constitutes a trick?
Like any arguments to presume absent a standard like a priori.
So it's just presumption arguments.
Arguments that affirm absent a standard. Like you can make like framework hijack arguments that I might have missed or something.
Great. Okay. So like you only get new responses to these tricks, right?
I only get new responses to like theory, like a prioris and like theories underviews.
Okay, great. So let's go like on the shell. So why can't like you like? Okay, so why didn't you like try to find something that was like a whole res like fill neg? Like why is that type of education bad?
It still doesn't make sense. I preempted this argument on my show. I said Phil doesn't solve. Just debating Phil doesn't solve because Phil officers are still concerned with who we tax and how we distribute the money.
Wait, why?
Because Kant clearly cares about taxation, like whether or not we're taxing people and how much and how we do it. Like a lot of philosophers surrounded with like land value tax. Like a lot of philosophers.
Why don't you read a competing philosopher, like a different philosopher?
I did. If you want to go for philosophers as an argument on the show, you can.
So you read you read like some like budget trade-off dissat.
Yes.
So like, why don't you have access to that? Like, so like you had access to that. Where's the abuse?
Okay, the point is that is like. Yes, I have access to some arguments, but I don't have access to others, and it's harder to debate. Like, I can't read certain types of spending and tax disads because I don't know how much you're spending or how you're getting the money.
Okay,
I also can't contextualize my turns on Kant. Like, if you would respect the tax mechanism,
Kenan,
I could have gone for turns about why Kant doesn't like taxes.
I want to go to the underview real quick. You said you get new responses on spikes. Why?
Because they're blippy and they aren't warranted and impacted out.
What's blippy?
It means they're short. And like they're not warranted and impacted.
How many words is short?
I.e., if you like extend a spike in the new R and like this means you drop him, this means you drop them is a new implication that I get.
Drop the debater or drop the argument.
Either. I get new responses in the two. You can make responses
just because it's blippy.
Because they're blippy and they aren't fully warranted and they aren't implicated.
Okay. So let's go on the like framing arguments. Wait, can you like not defend the theoretically justified frameworks?
Yeah, I won't defend those.
Okay, great.
As long as wait, you don't have any in yours, right?
No.
All right, I'll drop those. Then.
Okay, so let's go on the Sinababu. So why does that justify like utilitarianism, not just like some like bad type of hedonism?
So it says that pleasure is like what's valuable, and intrinsically that means we should maximize it.
That sounds like hedonism to me.
It's a form of hedonistic util.
Okay, so like, what is the implication of this argument?
That like empirical observations matter.
No. What's the implication of the framing argument?
What do you mean? Like the framework? It means we should use util.
Okay.
I don't understand. Like, what's the implication to using util?
No, I'm fine.
Try to prep, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, C's prep.
How much time do you have left?
56 seconds. So it's going to be his theory shell, the AC. Then it's going to be counterplan, and then dissat.
Where's the usual framework?
I'll be answering that like on the AC. So it'll be like answering the AC, then it'll be like answering the NC framework.
Wait. Can you repeat the
Yeah,
words?
so it'll be like theory shell. Then it's going to be like the AC framework. Then it's going to be like the NC framework. Then it's going to be counterplane dissat.
Are you reading a counter interp?
Yeah.
Can you type out the text so I can look at it if I need to?
Can I write it out actually?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as it's down before the speech.
I don't. Okay, actually, I need to. I'm only okay. And
Or oh, you're sending it out?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, I used a flash drive. Never mind.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm not gonna get it otherwise. What's it called? 1AR semis.
Yes.
Intuitively, yes. Oh, it's just, okay.
Okay, so is anybody not ready? Okay. Counter, I don't have to specify a funding mechanism with a qualified solvency advocate, and I meet this interpretation. Prefer one is limits. I can't talk about philosophy because I'm gonna have to spend more time talking about political ramifications of it and policy implementation philosophy. Education uniquely outweighs because it makes us smarter and like, enables us to dissect things logically. He says that philosophers also care about that. I don't care about that. It's about the portable education we get, about the portable education analyzing things analytically and logically, and also you lead to more research. Which leads to less in-depth research and less specific research, and it kills engagement. Because I'm gonna have to prep out different funding mechanisms to get this, because you're gonna get really good at answering a few one of these. So like I'm gonna be at a disadvantage of this. Of voters for fairness in education, I'll cross apply your voters for this on his theory shell. One, there's no impact to this. I was willing to clarify in CX and give him a card to clarify this. He didn't ask for it, and so whenever he goes for arguments about how judges don't listen to it, I could have given a card about this, and I also could have written this down. And two, like use recent ability with a bright line of if he has turned the impact around and if either CX checks this RBs. This resolves all the arguments because it doesn't lead to judge intervention, and also doesn't devolve into competing interpretations because I'm able to provide a specific way for him to access these and get a better norm in this. Also, dissat to competing interps leads to bad norm setting because it's going to lead to a race to the bottom where people just win marginal risk of offense on this and win. And also, I was willing to clarify in CX and theory is bad. And over V, there's no abuse to this. He read a counterplane and a dissat. That means that there's no abuse on this. There's like no impact to the shell. On his argument about debatability, again, we can talk about the philosophy of education and the whole resolution about this. And also, we're not learning about fairness. He says we're not learning about fairness and like evidence skew, but again, you read multiple things. There's no abuse on this. Now, into the case, one, extend the framework. One, property rights are need to sell difference in opinion, able to choose between different courses of action, not having them render ethics useless. That's bucket E7. This two, it's impossible to calculate and make decisions without property rights means send babu, and all these arguments are false. And one, extend empirical operator investigations that would prefer one, empirical observations arbitrary and not constitutive of ethics. Empirical observations can't make ethical decisions. That's Johnson and Russell. Only way to evaluate the statement on the resolution. This takes out morally. The moral decisions must be universal. Utilitarian decisions aren't universal, and Sinababu isn't universal because it only talks about your own experience. And I did a course card that I didn't exist at A point. Choosing between emotions mostly means that you have agency. B point, agency inevitable means my standard necessity. That's course card. This takes out as reductionism argument about the hemispherectomy, or because we can unify these arguments. And two, everyone has agency. Util ignores this and based off aggregate and false decision making. And extend independent warrants that one, it's the only way to guide ethics and avoid infinite regress without operating truths and political property rights. We're not able to make decisions. Two, my frameworks of prior question. We need to know why people have words. And three, all the frameworks collapse in the caught. They assume that everyone has words and we're able to make decisions. A big concession here, so you can see a boil and lab, and that means that intention, you should evaluate intentionality first. Again, it wasn't my intention to violate your theory shell and cause all these negative externalities. So cross-apply that to the theory shell. That wasn't my abuse. This isn't a trick argument because it's clearly in the framework where it had implications written down. It had 2 implications. He could argue that don't allow new arguments against us because I don't have time to go for this in the 2 ER. So this takes out the theory shell. It also takes out the counterplay and the dis because I don't have the intention of creating this. And go down to the bottom of the AC, the truth testing argument. Extend truth testing that we prefer this because it's the most jurisdictional because we have to evaluate what ought we to do. Disproving a different thing that we should do doesn't disprove the normative statement. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't provide UBI. That means his counterpoint goes away and it doesn't have any impact on this. He says that like he's able to like have new arguments against us, but like again, these were thoroughly warranted. They have multiple impacts, and it also don't have time to re-answer these. Also, this takes out the disad. This takes out the theory shell too because we don't vote on something that's on the jurisdiction, not the resolution that proves the resolution true or false. Now in the counterclaim, one new fails, 2 bureaucratical, it excludes people and destroys social cohesion. Press for 13 about mean testing not be efficient. Mean testing means more bureaucracy. This is eat up any parent savings. All we cut off point some who well off and generally benefit, some are excluded. Means benefit grade the opposite divisions. Much understanding these advocates, they lose these advocates the most disadvantaged don't have political to ensure that they stay sufficiently resourced. Now in the disad, it cross apply the Boyle and Lavin evidence that it's not my intention to decrease these. Second of all, he doesn't impact these to dependency. This is specifically about like employees and having the right to work that we should be able to have this. And UBI solves income inequality, redistributes wealth, and gives poor political power. Statin 16. Basic income function and income redistribution, reducing extreme levels of inequality. This would redistribute around the top 20% to bottom 60%. Recent macroeconomic model showed food stamps not having the greatest stimulus effects and stabilizing.
All right. I'll start the remaining 2 minutes of prep. What was the bright line on reasonability?
If CX checks and you have impact and turn ground.
All right. All right. The order is going to be theory, the AF, well, theory overview on the framework debate, then go into the AF, and then the NC and the counterplan of the dissent.
When you say the NC,
Like the util framework.
there? Okay.
Yeah.
So theory, overview on the app, util framework, counterplan, dissad.
Yeah.
Theory, app, framework, counterplan, dissad.
Yeah. There's going to be a brief overview before the AF framework that about like how to view the framework debate. Yeah. All right. These are going to be read on theory. I don't know if I'll get through all of them, but it's called 2NR.
Would you mind like going over there?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't do that for last speech. Everybody ready? All right. First, starting on theory, on his counter interp, on if we go to the first statement about limits 1, he says philosophy, but I don't limit him out of philosophy. He can still read text. He just says he has to read less time, but it's literally like 1 20-second card. So that there's a small link to education there too. Also, my link to philosophy is better because it's more important to talk about what the philosophers care about than whether or not you get to read a little bit less time of philosopher because it's a more key issue. So I'm not waiting on strength link there too. He says more research or less in-depth research, but there's no warrant to this. And to my top literature argument talks is the tax analyst is a more in-depth research of how to fund a UBI, which turns this argument to he says kills engagement because he has to pep out a bunch of them, but it's actually better engagement because we can taxualize disadd links to this. This turns this argument and has a stronger strength of link because I can engage better and more effectively with the app in it. He says this, he makes the argument that I can still engage, but my links and counterpoints are pretty generic. I can't contextualize specific links, and I can't contextualize on things like spending the sets and competitive counterpoints on funding mechanism, which he concedes, which means there's a verifiable loss of ground there rather than a unverifiable claim by him that this would have been my strat anyways. 2, on his argument that he gets to apply his framework to the case, he doesn't get away with the case. Theory comes before the case because the reason I wasn't able to engage with the case was he was abusive in the first place. This means theory is always on a prior layer, and 2, he did know he was going to violate the shell. I read the shell against him and in live several times. He knew the shell would be coming if he had read it, so there's definitely an intention to violate. He just wanted to try to win on an RVI, but that's not going to happen. So go on to my shell. First, extend topic literature. He said there's no impact on cross-checks. I'll deal with the cross-check arguments now. Cross-check checks are really bad. Here's 9 reasons. 1, it's not a speech. Nobody follows it, so it's not binding. He says I can't solve this, but that's not true because I need to wrap in the AC. 2 is key to plotting competitiveness. Specification of the plan is key to textual competition for agent counterpoints. Otherwise, the AC could permeate even if they functionally allow it to compete. 3, it denies in-round preparation, pre-round preparation. I can't propagate your app. You don't find this mechanism in the app right away. That means like if I do disclose means no harder. And 4, it killed my in-round preparation, i.e. during prep time and during the app. If I'm trying to pull up this heads and stuff because time is so short, I can't do it until if you wait until cross checks. Then 4, 5, 8, we shouldn't have to waste our time. We should have to use 3 minutes just to cast on quiz about the agent should about the funding mechanism. 6, this is only defense. It doesn't actually turn it. It's 8, evaluate the plan. The plan always is evaluated in a vacuum. If there's no funding mechanism, we don't really know the impacts. Not 8 allows them to be a boon target. They can just change it in the other next speech if they don't do so. He's done this in a round before. Empirically proven. 9, this is completely irrelevant. It doesn't respond to the voters. And 10, or skip the 10 one. Alright, so first, extend topic literature, which is the core of the topic. This is going to be a stronger link than limits and research, because if we don't look at the topic literature, we don't get any research or any engagement, which means I'm always controlling to his impact. Extend the debatability evidence. He concedes this straight out. Extend the Hammond 16 evidence. This card is gold. Call for it after the round of round. It says that we can literally not analyze VBI outside of the tax system. This controls internally 2 limits on the philosophy, because it doesn't matter how we limit the topic, we can't debate the topic. And 3, extend the evidence key argument. This is a larger skew to fairness. He doesn't respond to this whatsoever. So extend that. This means that he always has an unfair advantage in the round. He can always vote neg. He concedes drop the debater. So extend that across the flow. He goes for reasonability on bright line, but 1, extend the argument that bright lines are bad because we just competed and it devolves to reasonability, or reasonability bright lines are bad, it devolves, and that takes it out. Also, my cross-check checks arguments all reasons why his bright line empirically is bad. So he's just behind on theory, does not do enough weighing, and I'm just winning on there. So next, go to the app. Overview on Fairburg. Big mistake in the 1AR was dropping the Ripstein Avenue, which says that the con only cares about having a social welfare state, but not how much. That means the counterplan and the app are functionally the same under Fairburg. This was a straight up concession, which means even if he wins, the dissent and the counterplan are bad and some consequences on Framework. That means you can vote off the presumptions by which he wins. So extend the argument that turn, because negating on this topic is counterintuitive, you presume he concedes that, and I answer all his presumption spikes, which means Ripstein means you can presume neg right away on the substance level. This was straight up conceded with don't let down new 2 responses. Next, on the app, extend the $17 evidence, which says a UBI specifically would actually, no, I'm not even going to go for that turn. Big problem with the app, he concedes that argument. He goes for truth testing, and that's another reason why we should evaluate the shell, but cross by my argument that the shell always comes before the theory, because truth testing, it takes it out, because I couldn't respond to that because I had to waste time reading theory because you were abusive. Also, truth testing doesn't make any sense in context of theory because it's a literal comparative world about, i.e. us as debaters out of round, so truth testing application does not make sense. Next, go on to the framework, or the util framework. First, extending Sinababu argument. He says the Basel takes this out, but he did not answer my qualification of how Sinababu is universalizable, which means I co-opt all of offense because only pleasure is the only thing that's universalizable. That was conceded out the 1 star. He has a bunch of cross applications, so why cross-apply, but that is the only conceded argument in the round. So extend the ultimate argument, which also says we take out identity. He concedes the argument that this takes out his course guard framework overall, because we don't have complete identity. The framework debate is probably really messy. Review the round through an framework of epistemic modesty. He says both the counterplan and the F are acceptable under Kantian framework. Default to util if I win a 1% risk that util is true, or vote negative presumption if he wins con on the counterplan. First, on his better for card, this card is terrible. Look at the details of the counterplan. We start phasing out income at around $400,000. That's not enough to screw up social cohesion or screw people over and create poverty traps. This card is not UBI specific. To extend the EL2 evidence that we phase it out so late that the rich already have enough, which means there's no impacts about people being caught in mean testing traps. The way it is, this evidence is just non-responsive. So extend the EL2 evidence which says that this means that it provides people more dependence because we can give them more money. This one conceded, which means it's also better, even if he wins, that we can somehow differentiate between the counterplan and the app and the framework. He concedes the weighing argument, but since we're giving them more money, we're giving them more power and less dependence. This is a conceded weighing argument, which means I'm winning under both frameworks. Next on the dissent, one, he says that's not the intention, but he concedes the argument that because he knew this is the rules, which means it's inherently part of the action, he conceded by preempt to this argument. Two, he says it's no impact, but it's truly an impact. I impacted it as the fact that we were cutting welfare, which means that we're cutting welfare, which means they're less dependent. Also, so overrevealing counterplan B, even if he wins this Beresford card, it's probably consequentialist, which means if he tries to get you to vote under a Kantian framework, this Beresford card probably doesn't have an impact because it's about the intent, i.e. the NUBI intends to help poor people, which means the Beresford card only works if he collapses to util. Yeah, anyways. But it's also not responsive, just call for the card. It's just talks about means testing for little programs. Also, it doesn't cost more. My arguments answer that directly, saying that we already have all the info we need. So overview of the round is pretty clear. I've done a lot of weighing on theory on why I'm coming ahead. Classic checks don't solve. His reasonability by line doesn't make sense, and why I control the internal link to all of his things. On the framework debate, he's conceded the Ripstein card, which is a big issue for him because it means you can presume neg right away, and that the counterplan is functionally the same as the app. That was a big concession. And so otherwise, even if you think, and then also because of that, you can vote neg on a 1% risk of future being true because I'm the only one who's unique offense in the round. Thus, I unique. You starting prep? Do the judges care if I go get a drink of water really quickly?
Okay, so it's going to be the theory argument, then it's going to be the case, and then the counter plan, and then the framework, and then the dissent.
Theory, case, counterplan, framework, dissent?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is anybody not ready? Okay, great. Extend the Boyle-Lavin evidence that means that it wasn't my intention to violate the shell. He has two answers. He says that theory comes before case because it's prior rule to engagement. No, it's the pre-fiat reason why I didn't mean to violate this and why I am actually meaning your intern because I didn't intend to violate that. He has to answer the warrant to this. This is a pre-fiat. This comes before because it's a prior to evaluating this. He doesn't have to answer the theory. It's more of an answer to pre-fiat arguments too. He says that I've done this before and no, I've never debated you before and also this false. I haven't shifted out of this before. Whenever I debated you three, it's not verifiable. And second, he says that he can read whatever I want, but no, this doesn't justify. The Boyle-Lavin says that it was my intention to do this. I had virtuous intentions not to do anything. So the theory shell is a wash. He concedes he doesn't do any weighing between theory and case and framework and theory and framework. So that means that there's no offense under this. You can't vote off that. And yeah. So the CX checks arguments don't matter. Now onto the AC. He made a big mistake by going for the Ripstein evidence that said that the CP is functionally the same as the case. One, this is a new cross application of the Ripstein evidence, so I get new answers to this. One, so this means that this means that the perm solves because under the truth testing we shouldn't do the counterplan because there's no reason. It doesn't disprove the normative statement of ought. He used that as offense under the counterplan. He doesn't use that. He doesn't cross apply the offense to the case argument. He just used as a possible solvency deficit. But he dropped the argument that truth testing means that we shouldn't value counterplans because it doesn't disprove the statement. It doesn't prove that we ought to do something by doing something else. So that takes out the counterplan. Also, this means that since they're functionally the same, then you can do both, and it means that they're the same, and that under truth testing we can do the same. And also he says I don't extend the offense. I do extend offense. I do implicit weighing on the counterplane, and also the dissent about how we resolve dependency arguments and the Bowie evidence. And also he says that my cohesion evidence is bad because it just affects certain people. One, he has no evidence against this. The Stanton's evidence says that it's going to be not the Stanton's evidence. The Beresford 13 evidence says that it's going to eat up a parent's savings, and its means tested is more than efficient, so it's not going to lead to any savings. It's also not going to help people, and there's also also people that genuinely would benefit would be excluded because people in the middle area are not going to be benefited. Also, we have to help everyone because my art evidence talks about how we have to decrease the dependency. So like the Ripstein evidence is like a new Cobbles application just for the counterplan. He didn't apply it to the case framework, so I have the case offense on here. He does no analysis on the framework. He does no analysis on the a priori argument. So this takes out the utilitarian argument. So you don't flag the counterplane or the death stat. He also can see the argument about how we have practical agency. That's a course card evidence that we can unify different types of decisions and make one unilateral decision that disproves the reductionism argument. So the way the counterplane breaks down is that I have terminal defense on this because one, like the truth testing, we're not able to have it. He says it doesn't make sense because like we have to look at things comparatively. No, we have to just look at whether the statement is true or false. And doing a counterplane does not prove it true or false. We have to look at like what we ought to do, and the counterplane doesn't prove that. Also, yeah. So the case extensions, the case arguments were dropped. The Bowie evidence is specifically in context the dependency arguments. On the utilitarianism argument, this has really no impact. He doesn't have any large utilitarian dissats on this argument, and also the risk of also like the a priori extensions are true. And so on the dissat, again, it's not my intention to create this. He says that like I was able to know about this, but no, I wasn't able to know about this, and also be impossible to evaluate ethics without intentionality.
but I don't know. I sort of like 8 points to white cross. This jokes are bad. Jason do juggling if he wants.
So, decision's out. Congratulations to both of you for making the semifinal round. Victory breeds Philadelphia session camps tournament. Decision is a 3-0 for the negative. If you don't mind, my flow crashed right after I my ballot, so I have to use from memory, so I'm going to go first. Decision was pretty straightforward, such a messy round. The only argument against theory of the 2A go to score is just that Boyle and Levin shows that I should only evaluate actions on intentionality, which means I should discard areas you didn't intend to violate the shell. I think there are 2 sufficient responses from the 2 that are dealt with. The first is that if there's time skewed spent on theory, that means I ought to evaluate theory before the broader truth testing framework, the 2AR go score. But secondarily, on the specific level, there's also the argument just if there's abuse in the round, I can't evaluate substance. Seems fairly straightforward. I don't know if Boyle and Levin's true unless we resolve whether or not you were cheating in the first place. That's how you prove the argument true. I didn't flow a response to that in the 2AR there, so therefore I vote on spec. Again, if I missed anything, I'm sorry. My flow just died.
Okay, so I also voted on theory and also on substance. And I think for me, one of the things that is also important is that, like, I'm pretty sure that this Boyle and Lavin card requires you to win your, just that, your framework is true and that, util isn't true, right? Because otherwise, intentionality is not the only thing that matters. But I just think he's ahead on the util framework because he just, he goes for the Sinababu argument. He's like, hey, that's key to universalizability. We should all be utilitarian. And if we should all be utilitarian, then your only argument against theory just goes away, and I should be a utilitarian and vote neg because you didn't say what tax you did. So also I think that if I were to evaluate substance, I actually did not have an extension flowed of any of the AF offense in the 1AR. So I think that probably that combined with the very sort of mild epistemic modesty argument that was made at one point probably just means that I can just, because the neg has some util offense. You're right that he doesn't have a big impact. He just has an impact, it's sort of an impact, but I don't think that you really have very much. As to this question of the Boyle and Lavin versus theory stuff, specifically, I think I am a little more inclined to vote on this sort of argument, I think, than some other people. However, there's a couple things that you need to do in order to actually execute this argument well. So first, there is this argument, and they're going to make this 100% of the time, that he couldn't answer any of your arguments because you didn't say what your attacks were, which includes, apparently, an argument that intentions are the only thing that is morally important. I don't understand that at all. So the point is, you should be able to say, maybe, at worst case for me, this means that he didn't know whether my contentions were true, but, that Boyle and Lavin is true because that is sort of unaffected by the other thing. So that's, one point that you can make. And the second point that you can make is that, theory versus this, if you were making a framework argument that theory doesn't make sense, and then he's saying, I don't know whether your theory argument that I don't know whether your framework argument that theory doesn't make sense is true because I didn't know whether your framework argument that said that theory doesn't make sense is true. Right? So there's like sort of like a chicken egg hole sort of thing, and you should at least make some attempt to acknowledge that and like kind of resolve it. So because at the end of the debate he's going to make this argument, and you would have to say like yes, maybe, but in order to like for an act to qualify as cheating as something that precluded your evaluation of substance, you would have to like ascribe it to a person, and like that can't be me, which means that it is just not the case in this specific logical context that your ability to evaluate substance was precluded. It gets really complicated, but the point is you have to kind of acknowledge the chicken egg question if you want to go for this. Kenan, I don't know why you didn't just extend your case turn. Okay. Also, given that was the only argument in the debate you did not extend, that seems bizarre. You extended every single argument that you made in the debate except for a case turn. I don't understand. So you should not go for everything and extend drop case turns if that makes sense.
Okay, I thought he was gonna kick the framework and go for like the case turn affects the NUBI2. I don't know, but
if you were afraid of that, why didn't you just like kick it?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Don't go for everything, please.
Okay. I pretty much agree. I voted on theory. I think the cross application of this intentions first argument is answered by the 2NR, and those answers are not answered by the 2AR, so I don't vote on it. I think it would have been more interesting, actually, if the 2AR had gone for truth testing takes that theory, because he does make responses to that in the 2NR, but those are, like, fairly new responses, considering, I mean, there's a question of whether or not the implication that truth testing takes that theory was there in the 1AC, but his arguments that, like, besides the one that it's, like, out of round or something like that, I didn't really question one there. But so the other ones about, like, substance and abuse, that sort of thing, probably are less applicable to the warrant for truth testing because it is technically, like, theoretically justified. That would have been more interesting. But I think that even if that happens, and even if you even if you win, like, truth testing takes out theory and the counterplan, and, like, then it gets kind of interesting. Maybe, like, Ripstein takes out the AF framework, and I don't know. Then you get, and probably even if, there are a lot of ways that you're then losing, because presumably if he's winning this ethical modesty argument, even if, like, I don't know, the framework debate's a mess, he's winning offense and util, even if, it probably does take up presumption, by the way, but,
what?
Ethical modesty,
Okay.
but it doesn't really matter in the end, because even if all that went away, he's winning on his head. But theory comes first, so it's fine.